This week, we have one from the vaults, one that has been on the list like pretty much everything else for a very long time. Very excited to talk about. And you will notice that it is just me this week going solo. So a little advanced warning there. Listening to this for the editing, I could hear that my voice was not completely up to snuff. And as it turned out, just after doing this, I did come down with the same cold that Danny and Lily both got, as happens frequently. A lot of good things going on in this one. There's some good information that some notes that talk about after talking about the movie itself. It's a good example of, you start with one thing and you end up doing something completely different. The premise is the same, but the evolution of this project is quite interesting. So buckle in and maybe turn the volume up just a little and get ready for a scratchy voiced coverage of a really, really fun movie and one that everyone should see. And a lot of great trivia with this one. So let's get to it. Hey B-Siders, welcome to another episode of Bravo for the B-Side. This is Jim, and this week there's no Danny. So Danny has a pretty good head cold. Not good for doing a podcast. So that's right, folks. It's just me again. But got a cool movie to talk about, and been wanting to do this one for quite some time. And yeah, I was glad we finally got to get to it. All right, let's talk about this movie. So this week we chose Dark Star. It was done in 1974, directed by John Carpenter, written by John Carpenter and Dan O'Bannon, starring Dan O'Bannon, Dre Payich, Brian Nerrell, and Cal Cunningham. It was it was rated G. The budget was about $60,000. Give or take. We'll have a little bit more on that later. And the plot logline for this bad boy is, in the far reaches of space, a small crew, 20 years into their solitary mission, find things beginning to go hilariously wrong. That one's pretty good. Matches up. So, a little bit of history on this bad boy. So, it was done in 1974. I saw this in 1981. I was 11. It was end of June, early July. It was getting to that midsummer point. I was hanging out downtown and on State Street, and there was all of these pillars up and down the street with all these flyers and stuff, things going on. And I saw that one of the student groups was putting on a film. It was called Dark Star. They had a picture of the movie poster on it. And I thought, hey, I'm going to go see this because it's sci-fi. So this theater that it was in was basically just like a conference room with a pull down screen, the kind on its own little frame. And probably about 15 chairs. I think it was more like 10, but like between 10 and 15, just, regular chairs lined up. It felt like being in class because there was the movie projector right there in the middle of the row. And that's what we watched it on. And I fell in love with this thing for a number of reasons. And it has maintained its place in one of my top tiers of all-time favorite movies. And we're going to find out why. So let's talk about this movie. As it starts out, it's a pretty standard sci-fi. We get some, shots of space and nebulae and things going. We have a transmission, and it's apparently an incoming message from Earth. And this transmission kind of like sets everything up. We learn that it takes 10 years for messages to go back and forth. So this message is responding to the ship's previous message, which took 10 years, which only goes to figure it took 10 years for this one to get back. We learn that the captain of the ship at some point died of a radiation leak. And just for fun, they throw in that they're 18 parsecs away. We see the ship come through, the Dark Star. I got to tell you, this model is pretty solid. And, for this era of filmmaking, models were it. I mean, that was it, folks. No CGI. We've gone over that. But it's really fun. It's nice and clean. It looks legit. And at the top of this ship is this glass bubble. And it's just big enough for a dude to sit in this like mushroom chair and, kind of just like look at what's going on around. The opening dialogue is kind of standard. It's all business. Lots of knobs and dials being turned. The very crowded command area is kind of one thing that caught me. So imagine sitting 3 people right next to each other in a chair, and then the person in the middle faces the opposite direction. So pretty much shoulder to shoulder. And, if you're facing one direction, you have your panel in front of you, but then right behind you is the row of panels for the other guy facing the other direction. So this whole thing looked ridiculously cramped, but it was kind of fun and spared no expense. There are so many buttons and lights and knobs and dials. It's well done. Well done. This whole process, we learn, is a bomb is about to get dropped on a planet. It's an intelligent bomb. One of the crew, Pinback, has a short, if not very casual conversation with the bomb. They let it go, and then they jump into hyperdrive, because apparently they need to get far away from this thing. And this hyperdrive thing it's way more psychedelic than special effect. Just a lot of weird lights. I mean, really low budget stuff. Weird lights, things going on, sounds and stuff. And then we get to a point where the ship stops. And we see in the distance, the planet blows up. And the dude in the bubble reports the explosion. So, okay, we can see he's got some kind of job going. No one is listening. We find out that they're blowing up unstable planets. Not really sure why. They give some minor conversation about that, but it's not real solid. And the lieutenant, who is Doolittle, immediately wants to find another planet to blow up. This is apparently their whole job. So he orders up some music, and another crew member, Boiler, goes in, fires some up, and then we get the credits rolling to the tune of Benson, Arizona. We get some various cut shots of everyone looking a little worn down. Doolittle makes a log entry. And the most relevant piece of this is that a storage bay on the ship self-destructed and destroyed their entire supply of toilet paper. A little bit later, the computer announces they're heading into an asteroid storm. And this is funny because they all turn to the camera like they're looking at the computer from a POV, and they all just look wide-eyed in disbelief. Suddenly, a bolt of electromagnetic energy hits the ship, knocks the protective cover off of a laser, and at the same time, another bomb, this one labeled Bomb 20, deploys from the bottom of the ship. The computer tries to tell it to go back into the bay. The bomb argues. Eventually, it goes back in. And what made that whole thing funny is these are intelligent bombs. So they're a form of AI, and it knows its mission, its programming, and its purpose. It has a hard time understanding anything contrary to that. So the conversation is very flat, back and forth, but it's very, we decided, very UK, very British style conversation. So think of like Monty Python with their flat exchanges. That's kind of the tempo that this had. So after it goes back in to the bay, we find out that the ship is just literally coming apart. Their sleeping quarters were destroyed at some point, and they now sleep in a food locker. So it's got 4 beds in one in each corner, or cots, really, and lots of pinups and things written on the walls. And as they sit there, they all look so bored. Now, Pinback at one point tries to liven things up with some googly eyeglasses, a rubber chicken stunt. Boiler just blows smoke at him. He tries the rubber chicken on Doolittle, and Doolittle just all of a sudden loses his shit and just screams, "Damn it," storms off. And then he goes to play with this makeshift piano made up of bottles and cans filled with varying degrees of water. I have no idea how this works. And there's, a few more just kind of scene build or environment building shots here. And then later Doolittle brings Talby, who is the guy in the bubble on the top of the ship, brings him some food. He's been up there since the commander died. Now, it's been quite a while since their commander died. They chat a little bit. Doolittle, this is where he explains that back in the day he was a surfer, how much he loves surfing, how much he misses it, and also takes a moment to present to us that they have been in space for 20 years, but they've only aged 3 years. That doesn't actually have really any bearing on anything, but it's something that was thrown out there. And then we go back to Pinback and Boiler, and they are arguing over the use of a laser rifle. And apparently it's only for emergency. Boiler wants to do some target shooting. Pinback is just having a fit. And the computer comes on to say, it's time for Pinback to feed the alien. I love this fucking bit so much. This, you don't think anything of it. And for obvious, reasons, when I first saw it, I didn't think anything of it, but there it is. It's the gateway to some of the weirdest shit I've ever seen in a sci-fi film. So Pinback goes into a room with a broom and a dustpan and a little crate of food. And he starts calling out like he's calling a cat. And then this goes on for a little bit. And then from the ceiling drops the alien. And this is where you're right away, you're like, what the fuck? Here we go. It is literally a giant beach ball with rubber webbed feet stuck to the bottom of it. And there's some circles spray painted onto it, but there's no denying it's a beach ball. You can see the seams. You can see the little bit at the top, and it ends up attacking him. And then it suddenly runs off and goes into the hallway. Now, Pinback has to chase it down, beats it with the broom, and then it snatches the broom and starts whacking him. He ends up chasing it into a storage area. It crosses this big elevator shaft, and for some reason, it's not like a service access panel. It's just a hole in the wall. And he looks, figures, okay, disappears, comes back with a giant plank, sets it across it. The alien surprises him, goes back across, and then when he gets back there to the access panel, the alien takes the plank away. So now Pinback is stuck. And he tries crossing this very small ledge. Now, one of the things to set the mood, because this goes on for a while. This really does. The music, to give you an idea of what was going on in 1974 for low budget sci-fi films. This is the scene where he's looking for the alien, and it surprises him. And I just want you to hear this beautiful, beautiful music. And I had to put that bit on the end, his little scream when the alien has snuck up behind him. That whole thing gives you a sense of really what we're dealing with. So a lot of these interior shots of the ship, the bridge area, like I said, is super compact. They're in there. There's a lot of stuff. They have a just giant food storage room as a quarters. A lot of this stuff is like stock basement, commercial or industrial settings to shoot this. So we have a lot of pipes. We, have just a lot of dark areas. Some of it you can tell is a location. Some of it you can see is, stuff they've thrown together, getting their hands on, who knows what. There's a flavor at this point. There's a flavor to this. When we see that alien, it goes beyond earnest effort. I mean, you can see that, okay. I mean, there's clearly a path here. There's a focus, and you just want to know where it's going. So this is one of those we had talked about a couple episodes back on slow burns and the different things that make you interested. From the very beginning, there's the way the conversation is done, the way the shots are set up. It's a very casual kind of thing, and you just kind of feel like you're getting these little tidbits of these guys, and you want to know more. So this would work as a sort of a slow burn formula, even though we're given information pretty quick in the beginning. Bang, 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 bang. Almost unprompted in just, oh, by the way, here's some information. So with the alien chase still on, Pinback is trying to make his way through this very small ledge. And then all of a sudden, the computer announces the elevator is active. And then the alien, we see it on the other side through the hatch, is mocking him, making some weird sounds and just kind of bouncing up and down. All of a sudden, it flies into the shaft and attacks him again. And then he falls, catching himself and hanging by his hands. So, Indiana Jones style. And then it goes at him again. Only this time we see it tickling him to make him let go. He ends up pulling himself up, and then the elevator starts to come down. And he's just he's there. I mean, there's not a lot he can do. And the elevator hits his head and stops. And it kind of like bumps him a little bit. We'll talk about this elevator in a little bit. There's more to come. So what it ends up doing is hitting his head. It goes up a little bit, hits his head, goes up a little bit, comes back down. So what he does is he sees a place on the bottom where he can reach over and hang from it. So as he does, it suddenly goes up. Now, meanwhile, the alien has found its way to that broken hatch on the laser. And you know that because it's labeled laser. And he decides to go in, starts messing with it. It zaps something, and then shit starts to go haywire. And then Bomb 20 activates again. The computer tries to tell it that it was another mistake. And of course, the bomb is not at all about it. And eventually and reluctantly, with some snark, it goes back in. And I do want to run that conversation, because this is a good idea of the conversation throughout the movie. Now, this is between two logical units, a computer and an AI bomb, but this is very similar to how the crew talk.
Ship's computer calling bomb number 20. You're out of the bomb bay again.
I received the signal to prepare for a drop again.
But I repeat, this is not a bomb run.
Nevertheless, I received the signal.
It is an error.
Oh, I don't want to hear that.
I strongly suggest you return to the bomb bay.
That is counter to my programming.
Allow me to explain. One of the communication lasers has sustained damage. This has temporarily inactivated my damaged tracer circuits. You have definitely received a false signal. Please return to the bomb bay while I identify the source of the problem.
Oh, all right. But this is the last time.
And some more great music. But that exchange is kind of how things go. I mean, obviously with a little more emotion with the crew members. But it's fantastic. After this little bit, we pop back up to the bubble on the top of the ship. Doolittle is still there talking to Telby, and he is really pining for his surfboard. And that's the entirety of that scene. We cut back to the elevator shaft, and we have Pinback. This goes on for a little bit. This is sort of like if like Harold Lloyd and Charlie Chaplin had the time to stretch out some of their scenes. That's what this is. Pinback is screaming in terror as this thing goes up and down. He's hanging from the elevator. It just goes like up, stops, goes down, stops, goes up, over and over and over again. He suddenly spots a floor hatch and starts to undo the bolts with his fingers. So it's just, they're just finger tight on there. Now, we see in this elevator shaft some shots of up and down. So we see a fair amount of the shaft. It's worth pointing out there are no doors in this elevator shaft. I mean, like no elevator doors. If you've seen the inside of an elevator shaft, you can see where the doors are, right? When the car gets up to it, those outer doors open. So the inner doors of the car open and you can get out. There is nothing like that at all. This is purely like a shaft of terror. And so, other than the access hatch holes, well, not even hatches, I'll just say access holes in either side of the shaft, that's the only opening. And presumably the door is facing some other way. Anyway, he gets the plate off and he climbs in, or at least he tries to. We cut to the inside of the elevator and we see that he's stuck because his hips won't fit through the opening. Of course, in the elevator, there's a phone, a red one for emergencies. Picks it up, then the computer tells him it's out of order. He activates the elevator's cleaning routine. Now, behind him, as he's reaching for the phone, is this whole panel of just buttons. And he's pushing random buttons, different things, happen. One thing at this point, you may be asking yourself, if the computer's tuned into everything, why isn't it aware of what's, happening and hearing him? But hey, we'll just move past it. The cleaning routine for the elevator, apparently the hole in the floor, so he moves this plate, crawls up through it, can't fit. That plate is in the middle of a bigger plate that has explosive charges on it. Part of the cleaning routine is apparently those charges go off to blow that whole piece of the floor out. We hear an explosion, and then we're outside of an elevator door. It opens, the inner door opens, and out he comes, all smoky. And he grabs a box, opens it up, and it's a dart gun. And then he's back out after the alien. Eventually finds it. We had a lot of like cat and mouse going on. Shoots it with a dart to put it to sleep. And all of a sudden we hear the deflating sound of a balloon. And it is going all over the place. So one of these, only it's very stretched out. And ultimately it just plops on the floor, all deflated. Pinback has killed the alien. It is dead. So then he shares his ordeal with Doolittle. Oh my God. With Doolittle and Boiler. And they could not care less. And here's probably one of the clearest bits of conversation that I could grab. The thing with watching this is the sound is not fantastic. There is a lot of stuff that you can miss. And because the way the sound was mixed, the ambient sounds are oftentimes much, much louder than the dialogue. But this will give you an idea of Pinback whining and bitching.
So then it just spewed across the room like a balloon. I guess it was just filled with gas. Hey guys, how can it live if it's just filled with gas?
Wonder what we got to eat today.
I thought I was going to die. I was hanging on the elevator for 20 minutes.
Probably chicken again.
I probably saved the ship. That thing could have done some damage.
I'm really sick of chicken.
Well, if you don't care, I just won't talk about it anymore.
Hey, that sounds like a fine idea, Pinback.
So there we go. Now, obviously Pinback you can hear pretty well. It goes back and forth. There's times when everything's clear, times when one of them's clear. That's a bit of a quality thing we'll talk about in a little bit. Now, Talby, meanwhile, has come out of his bubble and he's wandering the ship and he makes his way to the computer room. We know this because it's clearly labeled computer room. He's in there and we have a lot of those scenes in many, they did it in Star Wars even, where there's just like schematics, popping up on the screen, making the clicking sound. And, Star Wars, they did it when they were in the Death Star control room. So we have different things of the ship, and all of a sudden, all of this makes sense to him. He figures out what is wrong with the ship. The laser that had the panel knocked off and that the alien messed with is a communication laser. And it's next to the emergency airlock. Right away, you don't think that's any bit of information that's important. It is, and we'll get to that. So he runs off to go fix it. The other three are just prattling on while they're eating. At one point, they're trying to figure out Talby's first name. Doolittle asks, startled, what his own first name is. And we just have a lot of shit like that. It's pretty casual. Nothing really going anywhere, which I like in movies because it adds we always talk about suspension of disbelief. It adds a lot of you're there, and it's easy to get comfortable with these guys. It's easy to understand their situation. Pinback at one point has stormed off, and there's a scene where he is in this room, reaches into his pocket, and he pulls out this fucking 8-track tape, and it has just a label on it written, bad handwriting, says My Diary. So he sticks it in a player and he plays it. And we learn that he's not actually Sergeant Pinback. He's Bill Krug, a fuel technician. We get a bit on how Commander Powell died, and then some random entries of him essentially losing his shit. He makes a new entry saying he doesn't like the men on the ship. And the sound effects for this, I didn't grab any of these, but the beeping is actually somebody going boop, literally just like that, to cut between these video entries. And we did hear a little bit earlier Pinback going on about this astronaut he saw coming out of a ship stark naked, some weird shit. It didn't make sense then, and it doesn't make a lot of sense at this point, but you do get that he's talking about the original Pinback who, we don't get, one of the things that's not solved here is, did this guy kill Pinback? I mean, what happened to this fucking Sergeant Pinback that this guy got on the ship under his name and nobody discovered it? What? Just like, what's the computer doing? You just kind of look past that, right? The next thing we have is the computer telling us the damaged laser is important because it's part of the mechanisms that communicate with the bombs. It needs to be fixed before another bomb run. Later, the gang, completely oblivious to the computer's lecture, start a bomb run. These guys pay attention to nothing, even each other. They ignore instrumentation. They just, it's just, their condition. At first, you kind of feel sorry for them. 20 years in space, ship falling apart. And then you slowly start to realize they are the purveyors of their own misfortune. It's really quite something. And then good old Bomb 20 is lowered. Pinback sets up the timers for the bomb, gives it a call. Talby, meanwhile, is suited up and going to fix the laser. And this fucking spacesuit is ridiculous. When I saw it for the first time, and every time since, every time I see this, the first appearance of this suit in the film, it looks like a weird bent dick with a jaundiced tip. You have to see it to understand. It is crazy. So with this ridiculous thing, he sets out to repair the laser, and then he starts calling Doolittle, who just gets annoyed and, turns the communicator off because he doesn't want to be bothered. The computer announces to Talby that the laser is in test mode. Meanwhile, the bomb is counting down to drop. The gang are doing their thing. Normal, conversation-y things. Talby is continuously trying to tell someone he's fixing the laser. There's a flash, and then Talby starts screaming, my eyes, I can't see. The bomb release malfunctions. They, of course, try to drop the bomb. An alert sounds. They try again. Another alarm. They go into a panic mode. And literally panic mode, just randomly pushing buttons and turning dials. They all of a sudden stop, try again, another alarm. And then we see that it's 14 minutes until detonation. So Doolittle orders the bomb to disarm. Bomb 20 refuses. Then the computer announces it's sustained massive damage. The computer room is full of smoke, and basically it's saying they're fucked. A lot of good cutting from scene to scene to scene as this is going on. It's very fluid. Anyway, Doolittle says there is only one thing that he can do. He has to ask Commander Powell what to do. And the first time I saw this blew my fucking mind. So we see him climbing down a ladder. He's going down somewhere into the ship. And then it looks like he's in a freezer. And on the floor is this big hatch, cryogenic storage. Be careful, it's very cold. So he pops open the hatch. Commander Powell is frozen in the floor in whatever, it's just like a block of ice. There are wires coming from his head. And you can see him coming up through the ice. And Doolittle uses this radio dial. You can hear him like tuning, and he's got this handheld microphone. And call, Captain Powell, Captain Powell. There's this warbly muttering. And then he starts having a conversation with Powell, who is, even though he's dead, apparently has some brain function while he's frozen. He goes on. He's glad that someone's come talk to him. It's been a long time. I don't know how he knows that. Doolittle explains what is going on. And, Powell says, first, you must tell me one thing. Doolittle's like, well, all right, what is that? And then the commander asks how the Dodgers are doing. Doolittle gives this whole big explanation that they're disbanded and so on. And then Powell says he's forgotten so much, but starts answering the question of what to do. And all of a sudden, it's like a bad radio signal. The static starts to drown him out. So Doolittle's like tuning. He tries again. All of a sudden, Powell's like, I forgot so much down here. So he just forgot what he said. He reassured him he'll have it in a minute, maybe. And then we cut back to Pinback, who is arguing with the bomb. And then Powell is still thinking, says if they can't get the bomb to drop, they'll just have to talk to it. And he tells Doolittle to use phenomenology. There's a whole big explanation for that. Really what it comes down to is just trying to out-psych the bomb. So next thing we see is Doolittle in one of the bent dick suits, and he's exiting the ship to talk to the bomb. He asks the bomb, how do you exist? And this leads to a stellar conversation. I'm not going to get into every little bit of it, but it is a lot of philosophy, psychobabble, all kinds of stuff rolled into one. I mean, this to write this bit was clearly something that was thought out, because you can have these weird conversations, but they have to make sense. The questions have to be legitimate enough to answer, and the answers have to be legitimate enough to spark a response or force another question to get an answer to justify the first answer to the previous question. Things like that. So Doolittle's carrying that on. Boiler says they can use a laser rifle to shoot out the pins that are holding the bomb in place. That was probably one of the dumbest suggestions in the movie. Pinback starts struggling with him to keep him from getting to the laser rifle. Sorry. And then we're back outside. Doolittle's now asking, what is your only purpose in life? And of course, Bomb 20 answers, to explode, of course. And then Doolittle goes back into the whole phenomenology thing and starts using some sly talk to convince the bomb that it's using false data, that reality is a construct, and the construct is without foundation, and da-da-da-da-da. And finally, as you're listening to this go back and forth, as an audience member, it's not that it's super deep, but it's just so back and forth and just so out there that you're like, what the fuck is he going on about? I mean, wow. Ultimately, though, we're saved because the bomb 20, returns to the bay saying, needs to think on this further. Doolittle then wants to come back into the ship, and for some reason, he just wants to go in the emergency airlock in the back of the ship. So Pinback opens it up. Talby, who was in there, flies out, and we hear, woohoo! And then Doolittle's like, you just ejected Talby. So he decides to go chase him down because Talby doesn't have a jetpack, clearly. So Doolittle jets his little pack, and I love the sound. I mean, that's really kind of it. Probably more accurate than a lot of sounds, but didn't quite fit the visual in this particular one. So he's doing that. Pinback is still trying to give the bomb new orders. Bomb tells him that he's false data and stuff. And then at this point, it starts to read Genesis from the Bible, but it's paraphrasing. And I love this bit. We'll talk about it in a second. But here is the play down of this exchange.
All right, Bomb. Prepare to receive new orders.
You are false data.
Hmm?
Therefore, I shall ignore you.
Hello, Bomb.
False data can act only as a distraction. Therefore, I shall refuse to perceive you.
Hey, Bomb.
The only thing which exists is myself.
Doolittle, help me!
Calm down, I'm coming.
Snap out of it, Bomb.
In the beginning, there was darkness, and the darkness was without form and void.
What the hell is he talking about? Bomb.
And in addition to the darkness, there was also me. and I moved upon the face of the darkness, and I saw that I was alone.
Hey, Mom?
Let there be light.
And at that point, nuclear explosion. We're going to come back to that in a second. And so the Dark Star explodes. Talby is just thrown deep into space, floating away into nothingness. Doolittle starts falling towards a planet. His jetpack is busted. And one of my favorites, he spots Commander Powell in his ice cube floating away. And we just hear this faint voice. What's going on? And that's it. Talby ends up floating towards what's called the Phoenix asteroid, something they mentioned earlier in the beginning. It just circles the universe kind of thing. So it's like his perfect death. And we end up with Doolittle grabbing a piece of metal from the Dark Star, hopping on it, and then using it as a surfboard as he burns up in the atmosphere of the planet. And we have Benson, Arizona playing again. And that ends the movie. Let's talk about the most recent thing that I played, the Bomb 20 with their Let There Be Light. So by this time, like I said, I was 11 and I had seen 2001: A Space Odyssey. So the whole Hell 9000 thing was clearly embedded in my head. And I don't know, even just watching it a couple days ago for this show, that is a really poignant scene for me because as you've listened, this is kind of a slightly ridiculous movie. And I'm going to tell you why in just a second. But all of a sudden, this very legitimate, serious bit of dialogue, which is roughly 50 seconds, right? That offsets the entire movie. I mean, there's a lot of back and forth and that whole phenomenology discussion, which is more based on bullshit than anything else. I don't know. I found this to be, I don't know. It's one of those things. It just grabbed me and it still does. And I think anyone who's seen this would probably experience that, not as like some life-changing thing, but in this weird movie, when you have a moment like that, I mean, this is what you want from your films. As a director, as a writer, as an actor, in your performances and stuff, you want your stuff to be remembered. People to think about it, talk about it, bring it up, even if it kind of like slips the mind here and there, but it keeps coming back up, remains relevant. It has a perpetual life. That's what you're going for. And this bit of Bomb 20 with his Let There Be Light thing was both ridiculous and, I don't know, strong. It anchored this whole movie. All these bits of just kind of out of control shit going on seem to lead down to this solid core right here. And, we could get into a whole bunch of discussions on what would make the bomb think that way. Was it the phenomenology discussion with Doolittle? Cause that really wasn't super high powered. I mean, certainly not something you'd find in the Dale Carnegie How to Influence People curriculum, even as like a bad example. It really just kind of came down to it where, so this AI had some time to think, and its only knowledge of the universe and everything is its own existence. So the time it was activated, that's when it came to life. And, kind of like Hell 9000. It doesn't know anything other than what it's been taught, right? So the bomb hasn't been taught anything. So it also had a flavor of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy to it, where the whole thing with the missiles, and one's turned into a petunia, one's turned into a whale. The whale, what's going on? What is this? What are the, trying to figure out what it's doing as it's thinking. What do you call this? Are these words? What are words? You have this bomb who came into being, was given all this shit to process contrary to its orders, and its orders have already twice before been dicked with. Nope. This is my job. This is what I'm here to do. Nope. It's a mistake. So now it has to figure out, okay, so what's a mistake? If this is my only purpose and I was activated, how come I'm being shut down? Because I'm told this isn't what I'm about. And then it happens again. And then this third time, it's like, no, I'm done. I'm doing my thing. And then, the phenomenology discussion, and there you go. So there's a lot of stuff to think about, and you don't think about it right in that second. It just, I don't know. It just seemed very, say flatline. This thing is got beat bars going up and down, left and right because of all the crazy shit. And then there's just this solid moment. And it's really kind of like what makes 2001: A Space Odyssey creepy in movie form. And it doesn't quite translate well to the book, or in the book, because they did such a phenomenal job of giving the HAL 9000 this pseudo, I don't even want to say emotional, gave it a small degree of intonation to use in its speech, but it's very dispassionate, very actually unemotional in its responses, everything up towards the end. Don't do that, Dave. That's no different. It's pleading for its life. It's trying to be threatening. And it's the same conversation as when it's asking a basic question or, trying to respond to, the sensors have sustained minor damage, but I made an adjustment. It's all the thing. That's what makes it creepy, is having something so powerful be so monotone, not just in speech, but in its emotional umbrella is very small. Let's just say that. All right, let's talk about how did Dark Star come about? So, this is widely known as John Carpenter's student film. Originally started as a 45-minute student film, and they had about $1,000 budget. And word of it got around, and distributors started showing interest in this thing. The budget was raised up $60,000. An additional 50 minutes were shot to get the film to feature length. When Jack H. Harris finally obtained theatrical distribution rights, he insisted several cuts and reshoots be done to compensate. And due to all the interference, one of the greatest quotes is writer and actor Dan O'Bannon said, "We had what would have been the world's most impressive student film, and it became the world's least impressive professional film." O'Bannon and Carpenter later made a director's cut that was 10 minutes shorter than the theatrical release. Now, we saw this bad boy on Tubi, and it's the normal one. So the one I saw in the theater. And let's see. So those space helmets, those space suits. This is so hard to explain. So most of the suit from the feet to the shoulders is pretty standard stuff. It's like a big, heavy jumpsuit. I mean, you could pass it off as a spacesuit. But these helmets, right, they're super tiny and elongated, and that's what makes it look like a weird bent dick. When you look closely at it, you can see it doesn't sit right on them. It's just super weird. Plus, to see out of it, they have to look up. They can't see straight ahead unless they bend forward and then look up. And the reason for that is from 1968 to 1971, Ideal Toys had a toy line called Star Team. And these helmets were made for kids. It's part of the Star Team toy costume. Okay. Which, man, I tell you what, I wish I'd have gotten my hands on one of these bad boys. But, by 71, I still learn how to talk. So no such luck. But this is why they fit so poorly. But you know what? It's an indie film, right? you use what you've got. And they were able to get their hands on these. I thought it was pretty cool. Looked ridiculous, but it was something. And honestly, way better than a lot of stuff that we've seen in modern films, right? Let's see, another note before we talk more about the movie. And this is an excellent bit of trivia. And this is, I'll say it at the end. So Dan O'Bannon, who was the co-writer, later reused the alien mascot section of the film as a basis of a script that he called Star Beast. Now, due to the low budget of Dark Star, Alien was clearly a beach ball that could only be played for comedy, but O'Bannon felt that with a proper budget, the premise of an alien creature stalking the crew of a spaceship could work as a genuinely tense movie. Now, as luck would have it, directors Alejandro Jodorowsky and Ridley Scott had both seen and liked Dark Star and employed O'Bannon and designer Rod Cobb in projects that would finally lead to O'Bannon's screenplay being filmed as Alien. That's right, folks. Watch Dark Star because this is the inspiration for the movie Alien, which we talked about in our slow burn episode. I did, clearly had no idea about this when I was 11. And, you learn these things later on and it's just like, wow. This is an important piece of trivia because this is the one thing that we always talk about on the show. You need to be in this for the long haul. You have no idea where things can go. And it can take a long time to get there. So now in this case, we're talking roughly 5 years, right? Maybe 4. Alien came out in 79, so it was shot a little bit before. You know how it goes. So let's say 4 or 5 years. That this thing went from this weird student film to this even weirder full-length feature and then kind of vanished in obscurity for a while and then becomes Alien, one of the defining movies of sci-fi horror and special effects in terms of creature creation. Holy shit. I don't, and we've gone through this before, but the xenomorphs were like nothing else ever seen on the screen. That the creature from Alien blew away everybody. Because when I first saw that bad boy, my head, it had a hard time understanding what I was looking at. What's going on here? Because before that, now we had Star Wars and we had some creatures, right? But it wasn't really horror. So nothing was supposed to be spooky as much as weird. I love Forbidden Planet. That is, 20 something years before. And yet that creature was hand drawn and it wasn't really a full creature. It was kind of animated as it walked through electrical fences and stuff. We saw the fake footprints, but we never actually saw the creature as a full creature, right? It was always some weird outline thing. It was a little spooky. But now I want you to think about all of these wonderful sci-fi shows that had monsters. Some were supposed to be sci-fi horror, which usually consisted of people dressed in shiny clothes and makeup that makes them look like cats or something. I don't mean prosthetics. I mean just mascara and eyeliner that makes them have cat eyes, and a lot of blush, something like that. The creature from Alien completely fucked with audiences' expectations of what a space monster would be. That kind of thing came from this very earnest effort, and if not confused, because it's another example of, you're doing your thing and then other people step in, particularly people with money. And, sometimes you got to do what the people with money want you to do, right? And, you're stuck with what you got. it still has a lot to do with patience and persistence, because you're making your movie, you're doing your thing. You're like, finally getting my stuff done. Hope it's good enough to, bring everybody on board and make a lot of money, because, hey, who doesn't want that? But you have to remember that even if you do that one thing, there's always the next thing, because this is not a one and done kind of business. The fantasy stories of someone who makes the sale, gets millions of dollars. You don't have to, invest that and you're done working for life. Those are the people we're talking to. If that's your main goal, because I think a lot of us, as creatives, yeah, we would love to have that $1 million purchase or millions of dollars purchase, but we're still going to keep writing or directing, acting, whatever it is that you do. We as writers, Danny and I, we have so much stuff to get on paper. I don't know if we're going to be around long enough to do it. I think 50 years probably isn't going to be enough time to prattle out the ideas that are weeded out as that sounds good. Because, man, there's a lot of crap. And we all, roll with that. Just random shit pops in your head. Hey, and at some point you're like, oh, this is ridiculous. No. Moving on. It's kind of how we just deal with getting through the day. But, so anyway, when you see Dark Star and you watch this alien scene, which is the longest sequence, oddly enough, of this movie, it goes on and on and on. And there is no real point. I will concede this. This is typical for the 70s. The whole point is when you do your thing, you got to think to the next one. And if you're doing your thing and it's not getting made, nobody's buying your script, no one's giving you money to direct, all this stuff, you just got to keep holding on. You've got to keep holding on. Use this as an example. This silly little thing called Dark Star spawned Alien, which along with an Alien was like the last of the trifecta. So we have Star Wars, okay, and then came Star Trek, because they're like, well, hey, we had this whole spaceship fucking thing going way before Star Wars. Let's take our series, make a movie out of it. And a little bit of trivia, at the time that they were rolling together Star Trek the Motion Picture in terms of a concept, they were actually doing Star Trek 2. That was its official name, because they didn't have anything to run with at the moment. But they were bringing back Star Trek for television with the whole cast, and William Shatner's Star Trek Memories autobiography lays it out pretty clear. They were all excited to do it because none of them could really get work doing anything else, because they've been typecast. And so they were up for it. And then big shift, boom. And a lot of what the pilot episode and the first season arc was about made it into, is basically what created Star Trek the Motion Picture. So the whole idea with Kirk kind of being a backseat guy, this new hot and heavy Captain Decker, all of that was already conceived and put into story form long before the movie was even thought of. But Star Wars came out, bam! They're like, all right, let's do Star Trek. So we have, let's call it space adventure, space action. So that's Star Wars. Star Trek, the motion picture in 1978, gave us the serial, the sci-fi serial. We can take this long story that spans, episode after episode after episode, and we can move that in a slightly condensed version to a film, and people will love it. I remember seeing that too in the theater. I was super excited. And then afterwards I was like, Huh. I like the series better. We're not going to get into the whole what was wrong with Star Trek, the motion picture. But anyway, that's number 2. And then we have Alien, number 3. Scary space. Scary as shit space. Not Gamera flying through the stars, not Godzilla kicking some nasty ass monster out of the Earth's atmosphere, not moon people, not Martians, not all this weird stuff. I mean, War of the Worlds was a good book, and I think they did a fair job converting the story into film. The 50s version of War of the Worlds, I love that so much. But it's more the circumstance that's spooky. All right. We have classic horror in Alien, and we have a completely mind-blowing, fucking terrifying monster. And the funny thing is, and we've mentioned this before, there is virtually no gore in Alien. The chest burster scene, and beyond that, it's really just all creepy. So that's the one thing I wanted to get through on this is, like I said before, even knowing all of this history of this film, when you watch it, you can see there's something inherently terrific about this thing. Now it is dated, as you heard, and if you forgot a little bit of this, this is that's as standard as it comes. And here's the funny thing: prior to Star Wars, that was what every kind of sci-fi film had. When they got out of the studio manufacturing process of science fiction, because it was really fading off, right? The studios weren't dumping a lot of stuff into it. And if they were, it was not even B level. It wasn't even B-reel movies. These were just things like, let's make this, and if we can show it in 10 theaters around town for a week, we can probably make enough to, get our money back. Because they didn't put a lot of money into some of these films. But Forbidden Planet was still in the studio days where they had a studio orchestra. It wasn't anything great. It was all... it was basically the same kind of sheet music. They would change the key, and then it's different music for a different film. But if you've seen enough of them, you're like, here we go. Then in the 60s, when we started getting into the psychedelic stuff, synthesizers came into it, and that was the thing. Every fucking thing on television, in movies, a lot of, I'm not going to play it again because I can't do it. Then Star Wars comes along, and they're like, yeah, let's put the Casio in the closet, and let's hire someone who knows how to write music, and then let's get a whole fucking symphony orchestra to play it. And boom, right? Now, Alien has some of this and some of that, but that evolution was important. So we have evolution of music, not to mention special effects, right? In Star Wars, Star Trek, took it to the next level. And then we talked about Alien just recently, how the internal sets are just wonderful. But when you watch Dark Star, like I said, it is dated. So we have the music, we have the interiors, we have the film quality, which is a big tell. And the audio quality is the biggest. There are things out there that have some sort of a retro look to it. And, you can apply these filters, just drag and drop. You can make shit look like it's, from the 50s on a handheld, 8mm or even earlier. But, the one thing people usually don't do is fuck with the sound to try and replicate this bad sound. It's bad. It's just bad. I'll just say that. And, now you can kind of see why it's not the greatest, but I really enjoy watching this movie because of the number of deficiencies that it has, don't get in the way of the movie itself. It's like, you know what? I know what I am, and I'm just going to roll with it. You know, it kind of, recently having watched it last few times, reminds me of, Parks and Recreation. Yeah. Where, you know, we get the great, Nick Offerman telling a waiter, I know what I'm about, son. And it's just that simple line. This whole movie is just like that. I know what I'm about. And it does. It's not pretentious in that it tries to reach out to be more than what it is. And you clearly, though, you can see that John Carpenter had some big ideas to make this go. And then you can also see the discordant pieces of, you can almost pick where the original student film was and then all the add-on stuff. Because things don't, I mean, there's a lot of, that's there. And is it there to just be there? Or is it gonna go somewhere? I don't know. And really, like I said, from beginning to end, there really is no giant plot. Doolittle has his little surfboard revelations in the beginning with Talby, and then goes to his death riding a surfboard. Talby talks about the Phoenix asteroid, and it's really kind of almost like, yeah, whatever. And apparently he's going to, go towards that. Commander Powell, who's dead and frozen, barring colliding with something or falling into a sun or a planet's gravitational field, is going to be cruising the universe with ultra low voltage brain energy as he's frozen. I don't know. I mean, that's it. There's no real big moment of closure. There's nothing to close. This is just what it is. Of course, Pinback and Boiler, they're gone. The bomb reached its higher purpose. And, the rest of it's just done. Right? So nothing was solved. Nothing was achieved. Nothing was revealed. So you might be asking, well, why is this any good? Because it's fun. And that's one of the things that we've also talked about is you got to have fun with this stuff. And to have fun with this stuff, you need to make every once in a while something that is fun. Movie doesn't have to be so deeply entrenched in itself that, you're envisioning people watching it literally gripping their seats in the theater and like, oh, this is so makes me want to cry, or it makes me, we all like movies like that, but sometimes we like the fun movies. This is a fun movie. You're not going to learn a lot. You're not going to come away thinking a whole lot differently. There's a few moments like the whole Bomb 20, Let There Be Light speech, phenomenology. That's always good to have a conversation. Like, where do you fucking suppose that was supposed to go? You can talk about the beach ball alien, because that's always fun with those weird rubber claw feet. And, ultimately, if you do all that, you're just going to have fun. And as a creative, I personally would feel really good knowing if I wrote something that was filmed and put out there, knowing that this isn't going to do anything for anybody's life in terms of steering it in a direction or altering an opinion or challenging a perception. What it's going to do is it's going to make them laugh. It's going to make them go, huh, and walk out and just have fun talking about it on a very base level. Even if, did you see that fucking alien? What in the Christ was that? Hey, it's a conversation. It's a conversation. And that's really, really all you can get. Because even the best movies, what makes them, stand out as far as Oscars and stuff and audience affection is they're going to have a conversation about it. So one conversation is as good as the other. And, I like fun stuff. I like just watching stuff for fun. That's why we still have Charlie Chaplin films. That's why we still have Buster Keaton, Fatty Arbuckle, because Harold Lloyd, you people are listening. And if you're thinking, who the fuck is that? Look them up. Check out their stuff. All that shit's so old, you can watch it on YouTube all over the place. All over. And it's funny. It's silent films. It's slapstick comedy. Most of the stuff translates. There's a few things I can think of in some of the films, for all of them, that are very period dependent. So if you don't really understand that period, and being a silent film, for those of you who haven't seen them, because I understand there's quite a few who never seen one. It's just the movie playing. It's got some, weird, 20s music plastered on top of it. Obviously no dialogue, and every now and again there's a cutaway to some words. And it's not subtitled or anything. There'll be this action scene. There'll be this whole big, looks like they're saying a lot. That's one thing about silent movies. They're like Godzilla and Mothra movies and stuff, where you can see the lips moving a lot, and then the English translation is like 4 words. And that's kind of what silent film is. They'll be talking back and forth, and then I'll come this big placard that is just the words. Did you see what that guy did? No, I just got here. But, they said way more than that, I think. And the funny part is, a lot of times what they said on the screen wasn't even what they put on the print on the screen. So anyway, check these things out. Watch them, because it's all about good time. And someone had to write this. And they did write later on. They started to write dialogue towards the end, because they realized when motion pictures came with sound, like, we got to do a better job. So we can't just have people prattling on screen and then we figure out the fucking story afterwards and put some words up there. So they did try to script it and then use the words from the script, but then, who wants to watch 2 minutes of a scene and then read 2 minutes, read for 2 minutes the dialogue and then go back and forth. So obviously people want to hear their actors. That came to pass, and silent films went away. But they're a good time, and that's why they're still around, because people still enjoy watching them, because they're fun. They're fun. Some of them have kind of a story. Most of them are just, random shit, like Mr. Bean kind of stuff. Just like, he's just out. That's his fucking day. There you go. And, I'll watch Mr. Bean till the end of time. It's good. It's good, people. One of the big tells for dating this movie is the special effects. Dark Star, the model, like I said, was awesome. And you see it going through space. The film quality is a little, what do you do? But had it been crystal clear, it would have held up. It would have looked like, episode of Star Trek, ship passing a planet and stuff. Then we get into like the nebulae and like the meteor storm. I didn't even know the first time I saw, or asteroid storm. The first time I saw this, and I was watching, a print of the film, but in its original film format. Even then, I was thinking, I don't really see asteroids. I see the star field, and then I see this weird, like sparky thing. And we've all seen them, the little bzz, bzz, round, wiggly line things that are animated clearly. So apparently that was energy going between the asteroids. I didn't know asteroids grouped together like that, but anyway, it was a whole thing. And you watch that scene. You have some before that, but that clearly lets you know it's just not going to get better from here. This is it, man. This is it. That's okay. That's okay. The hyperspace scene, or the hyperdrive scene, also ridiculous. basically a still shot that has weird lighting, so different exposures to the film. And then we talk about the alien. The elevator was actually pretty solid, and it was this thing that went up and down. Now, why it was in the ship, who the fuck knows? And it's funny too, because so you see the Dark Star, you see Telby sitting on the top of that bubble, and then later on you see these bombs come out, and these bombs look like what they did is took model trains, busted the trucks off and stuff, painted them white, and then stuck some other random shit on it because it has that train car cargo container kind of look to it. But here's the thing: the size of this thing when it comes out of the bottom of the ship, you're like, Jesus Christ, that's like at least 50% of the ship. Where's everything else? And then you see Telby up there, so it gives you scale to the ship. If you're going to be nitpicky, the Dark Star could not possibly carry that bomb and then have the massive compartments in space that it does, because it just isn't that big compared to a human body. Number two, they have, I don't know how many of these fucking bombs, but they've had 19 previous to this one. There's no way those things would be 3 times the size of the Dark Star itself. So if you're going to be nitpicky about that, that is certainly there. But here's the thing: when you watch a film for fun, most of the time you don't catch that shit right away. It's just like, you're brought in. This is kind of a goofy thing. It would be like watching Airplane or the Naked Gun series and trying to nitpick everything. You drive yourself nuts, right? Because the writers and the director and the producers and the actor, none of them fucking cared. None of it had to make sense. They're making a fun movie. That was it. But if you're an effects junkie like I am, you will notice a couple of these things here and there. And, just don't think on it too much. Let it go. Just let it go. Don't make it a part of your life. Think ahead. Think of this as I don't know what you would call it. Don't even call it the embryo. Think of it as sci-fi genre 1.0, the precursor to 2.0, which is now like at 12.0. So the acting performances, not fantastic, not going to lie. They're very plain and actually very 70s Python. To be honest, that's kind of what I would equate it to. I think Mr. Bean has a higher level of sophistication than what we would get here, but there it is. Still it's fun. And here's the thing: I love this movie, and I'm not trying to crap on it, but there are obvious deficiencies, but that's part of the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. It's from 1974, but somebody fucking made this, man. Somebody made it. Then somebody stepped in, threw a lot of money at it, and they had to rework it some. But I mean, shit, come on. John Carpenter, right? Do I need to say it? Look at his fucking career after this. We have Dan O'Bannon, who's been all over the fucking place. And then, Ridley Scott picks up this shit, gets involved with this weird idea from a segment of this film that he liked. And, bam, Alien. How can you go wrong with that? You just simply can't. So you need to have perseverance in what you're doing. You need to watch this movie and all the movies that we say watch, because I think it helps a creative this is part of the history of why you're doing what you're doing. Especially if you're into the sci-fi genre and that's what you want to write, whether it's, grounded, near future, totally fucking out there, new universe kind of thing, television or feature, or, even web series, right? Whatever. You need to know where you come from, and you need to see things that have come before. I think that's important in everything. I mean, no artist in history has ever just the greats. We'll call them the classic greats. You know, they didn't just like show up and do shit, right? They brought things with them that were inspired by other things that they saw. And that's kind of who they became. That's just how it works, you know? All right. See this movie and see where you can see if you can tell where the seams are. Where's the student film? Where's the, you need to put this shit in there and squeeze it in. Some of it's, I think, a little easy because, like I said, the quality is not fantastic, but there are some very stark lines between scenes where you can tell one's a little bit fresher, maybe had a better camera. The sound is kind of fucked all the way through. That's just, I don't know what happened there, but deal with it. I mean, you know, I saw it with the projector sound, film projector sound going off 3 chairs away from me. I still could make it out. But it can get a little frustrating. You know, I don't think you need subtitles, but hey, if it helps, it helps. Most importantly, you're not going to miss any like key to the solving the puzzle dialogue sort of thing. It's just not there. The music representation on this, it's not even a lesson of what not to do. I think it's more of just, you know, you use what you can. And this was kind of the standard. So they actually did pretty good. The quality just wasn't superb. I don't know if someone didn't know the Casio as well as somebody else who scored a sci-fi movie. I'm not quite sure how that works because it all kind of has a sameness to it. But yeah, there you go. The dialogue, not stellar. The plot, it's not riveting, but it is fun. And personally, I don't know anybody who has seen this who's walked away like, you know, sorry for the experience. Like I said, it's not a thinker, but you can have some fun conversations. You know, as a creative, it might inspire you to inject a little just kind of random, weird averageness into your stuff. You know, who knows? Might make it great, might make it shit. If it makes it shit, you cut it out, go back to what you did. That's simple, you know, especially in the writing phase. Just do it. Never feel bad about your effects. I mean, we've railed on some things that had some stupendously bad special effects. And it's kind of gone both ways. We've had some that have some really bad quality effects, but you can see what they were going for. So yeah, it kind of blended in. And, you know, you always know in the back of your head, they're doing the best they can with what they got. But then we've seen other ones that threw in really bad effects and you have no idea what they're supposed to be or what their point is. So yeah, if you don't have a lot of money, you do what you can, but just make sure, and we've talked about this, especially with like CGI and shit, put effects in where they're necessary. Don't do it for a wow factor, right? One of the things I consider one of the special effects is the set dressing. So if you're doing a sci-fi thing and you're putting together a computer console, make it interesting, make it interactive, make it look lively, okay? But it doesn't have to be crazy, weird, just, you know, aesthetically loud kind of shit. Do the best you can. You know, and these days, shit, getting a strip of LED lights is next to fucking nothing. You don't need an engineer. You can just get you can even do it with a piece of cardboard. Get a piece of cardboard, get some colored plastic squares, cut holes in the cardboard, put the plastic squares over those holes, glue them in place, and just run LED lights underneath them. You don't need to be an electrician to do that. It's like lighting up a cube so you can show what's inside of it. You got to think back when these guys were doing it, 1974, you're looking at all this shit and you're thinking, yeah, they had to bring somebody in who knew how to wire this shit. You can't buy most of the stuff in the store. They had to make it. And even if it's cheesily done, somebody still has to patch all that shit together, run the wires, make sure fires don't start and all that. So special effects, you can go simple, you can go cheap, you can go cheesy. Just make sure they belong. That's been our biggest complaint. If this movie had been made today, I think it would not have been as good. It would have been a lot of CGI. It would have taken a lot of depth out. A lot of people like using CGI. And again, there's a lot of templates and stuff out there. You can buy motion files. They're like mini mocaps, and you can like choose from different skins to get a creature on there. Bad CGI is about the worst thing you can do to a film, because it just removes the depth of everything. And even though Dark Star is pretty flat because of the film quality, you can still get some depth in the things that are going on. So, try not to throw in a bad CGI animated creature. It doesn't have anything to do with anything, just because you want someone to go, oh, look at that. Get a gorilla suit. Paint the face red. There you go. I think that might come out to be better. But anyway, yeah, if this was made today, it would be heavily CGI. They would have green screened it. They would have done a super small set, and probably green screened some of the controls, CGI'd them. And I just wouldn't have been great. So when you do things like this, remember, you got to put your heart into it. And the more technology we use to throw into stuff is really less of the actual heart. That's my opinion. Has its place. Not saying don't do it, but if you're going to put a guy in a room that's nothing but green and then just have him do stuff and then generate backgrounds and surroundings around him, it's not going to have the same production feel. I don't mean sets and stuff. It just doesn't have that same feel as somebody who really crafted something together. As I explained to my daughter, it seems like the height of laziness. There are ways you can do it to make it work, and there's genres of that do work. That is its kind of own genre. But, try and do your best. Do your best. Watch Dark Star. Watch all the movies that we've covered. But with Dark Star, remember, it's dated. See what they did, and just carry that forward. So, all right, that's going to be enough about Dark Star. John Carpenter from 1974, one of my favorite all-time movies. I've seen so many movies as a kid when I should have been home, out after curfew and stuff. Crazy. But guess what, folks? A little bit of news here. We have coming up after this very episode that you're listening to, the very next one is going to be episode 100. That's right. Now, I'm going to throw a little curve in there. Our 100th episode is actually this one. But if you go by the numbers, it's next one, because this is episode 99. How does that happen? Well, longtime listeners, you know that our very first interview with Anton Doiron and Carl Sears of Space Trucker Bruce, we labeled it as a bonus. And I wasn't sure, because we'd only done a few episodes. And when we got to interview them, we thought, oh, this will be cool. But we didn't expect to be doing any more interviews after that. We just thought it'd be neat. And we didn't know how to label it. So I called it Bonus 001. And unfortunately, that is how it will live forever. Weirdly enough, we've done tons of interviews since then. And, we love it. So I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen next week on the next episode. Got some surprises coming up on there, and I think you folks will enjoy it. We are very much looking forward to it. Danny was looking forward to recording tonight because this last week we went out and got chairs. Might be thinking, what the fuck are you talking about? Well, we got chairs. For the last 2 years, we have been doing this podcast sitting on stools, just a little round stool. They're not uncomfortable, which is why we got them. But we bought them just for the podcast because at the time, well, we're still in the same space, but it's reconfigured. But at the time, we had a real space issue, the way it was set up. And we were literally 3.5 feet, nose to nose. So had a big office chair in here. It was a gaming chair. We'd wheel that out, bring the stools in so we could sit, and they're not, really big. And they had a really small profile for the wheels. And then we do our recording. Well, over the various different permutations of the arrangement of this office space to what it is now, we decided we need to get chairs. But here's the thing. How do you get a chair? Can't get one on Amazon. You can. So we got the stools, and it worked out all right. It's also where I got the gaming chair that squeaked and creaked and fucking did it, and I had to throw it out. Getting good chairs, you got to go try them out. Do you know who has good chairs? Hardly anybody. And some of these things are fucking ridiculous. Just ridiculous. These mesh ergo chairs. I have sat in so many of them, and you know what? One is the same as the next. It's just a bunch of shit. So we need something not quite up there, but we need something better than a stool. So I went out and, here in Madison, we have several, used office furniture stores, and, decided, you know what? Got to run to the store and be passing right by there. Gonna go have a look. And bam, found a chair for Danny that just fit the bill, everything that she liked about it. Got one for me, and I'm going back and forth, and I've been moving and everything. These things don't squeak. And here's the beautiful part. These bad boys are industrial grade manufacturing. So that means even though they're used and they're a little old, the fact that they don't squeak or bend or do all this weird shit is just testament that we're going to have these bad boys for a long time. So anyway, very cozy. Don't have to sit and practice posture. I can lean back a little bit. Danny was looking forward to doing an episode in her chair, and so she could do the same thing. But next week, we'll do that next week. That is what will be happening. Check our website, www.lordsofmisrulproductions.com. And everything is there. Episodes, links to our platforms that we're on, the blog, merch store, all that stuff. It's there. There will be some stuff going on there pretty soon, I hope. We are looking at doing a weekly YouTube thing, completely unrelated to the podcast. It's a totally separate deal. That's what we're going to call it right now. A weekly YouTube thing. Those will be on a new YouTube channel that will be created, but also there will be links to the episodes. We'll have them embedded on the website as well. So anyway, also our links to our social media, check them out, see who's following us, see who we're following, and check them out. Check these people out. They are creatives for the most part, like you. If they're not creatives, they're fans of creative stuff. So get to know them because, what's the point of doing this if you can't have a fan or two? I mean, that's, it's kind of what drives the machine. But there's also podcasters and, just check everyone out. Try and get people to listen, look at their stuff, do some dialogue, or just, sniff around and see what everyone's up to. If you're a creative, that includes podcasters, check us out. And there's a couple email links on our website. Reach out to us. Let's talk about some stuff. We love talking to fellow podcasters. And, maybe we can do a show swap or have you on or we come on. whatever. A lot of times we just, swap different bits of information, about the technical back end side of it. So that's what we're here for. Check them out. We answer everything and love chatting. And I think that is going to do it. These things are rough. Talking nonstop, all by myself. Sorry you had to endure that. But hey, we never miss an episode. That's the goal, and we've succeeded so far. So hope that you will tune back in next week for episode 100. I think you're going to like it. And like I said, we're going to have a couple surprises that will be a little fun. Got a lot of really good stuff coming after episode 100. Obviously more movies. We're lining up some more talks and stuff. We'll have more news about this YouTube thing, weekly YouTube thing. And also things that are going on with other projects. So until next week, B-Siders. Check out everything out on the website. Check out our Patreon site. Check out our links. Check out our stuff. And new listeners, check out past episodes. Wah, wah. All right. So this is Jim, the lesser half of this show that we'll call it, saying keep creating, support one another. We might be spiraling into something. So you know what? Let's not wait until we do. Let's be there for one another now. And then if it does happen, we're already together. All right. Talk to you next week, B-Siders. Be cool.